Okay, in this video, you're going to be learning 5 very, very important golf shots on the golf course, which no matter what your level, you will probably have one of these 5 shots throughout, I would say, at least 15 of the 18 holes, okay? So these shots are vital for scoring. I teach so many golfers that want to get better, they want to get longer, they want to get straighter, and my question is always, if I make you, or if I help you make the ball go further, straighter, and you hit more fairways, how many shots will it honestly save? And I often come back to this side of the game, like, if we can get you really good inside of 50 yards, how many shots will that save? And I honestly believe this area of the game, these 5 shots I'm going to coach you on now, are massively important. We're going to start with a 50-yard pitch, okay? Now, I've literally got one club for all of this, because I'm actually a great believer in just being good with one club to start with. Now, there are definitely lots of other shots. If you look at the shot I'm faced with here, if you are really, really scared of these types of shots, you might run and grab an 8-iron or a 7-iron and just run it up the hill, because there's nothing really in front, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But these 5 shots in particular, well, bar one, the 4 shots I'm going to use this with are great for this club, because from 50 yards, well, I've got a 58 degree, you could tailor it to yourself, so you can use a 56 degree, a sandwich, 54, 50, whatever it's going to be, and just start to get comfortable with one club. Now, to talk you through the 50-yard shot, what we're going to do, we have the ball position very much centered in the stance. I'm going to have a little bit of weight favoring down my left side. Now, be careful not to adjust your spine angle to the left side, okay? This is purely body weight, so I often just kind of sit down more into my left hip, my left glute, and my left thigh as I get into that setup position. So I don't want to start to lean forward. That's a massively important one that I see actually quite often. So make sure you just kind of sit more into your left side. We've got ball position more into your left, ball position more into the center. And in terms of swing, we're just going to use the sternum. We're going to use the big muscles. We're going to make sure the shoulders rotate and the arms stay much straighter through the ball, and the hands stay as quiet as possible. There'll be minimal wrist hinge on this, okay? There'll be a little bit to help the club work upwards, but not much at all, because I think if we swap the wrist in and take the body out, we start to get this digging action, which is what we don't want. And also, probably the worst one for around this shot is catching the ball thin. If I use too much wrist, I'll use less body, because obviously the combination of the two will send the ball too far, so my body will stop moving and my hands will start to do this. It's a classic. So if you're weaker from this part, please do practice this as much as possible. Right, so I'm going to really feel that get my back to the target, my arms are only going to stay here, and I'm going to work my chest through to the target as well. You'll notice they've still got hip turn, we've still got shoulder turn, and we've still got a decent looking finish position. Okay, so massively important, setup's good, 50-yard shot, slightly downwind, so playing a bit shorter maybe today. Back, decent strike, and not a bad result. I'm on the green, I'm inside off, oh, it's getting better. I'll be honest, I didn't read the breaks, that's actually done better than I expected. I've got around about 10 foot. So if this is a par 4, I've got a 10-footer for par. I think anything inside of 20 foot is good, so then you can try to keep it into 2-putt as well. From 50 yards and in, everything has got to be down in 3 maximum. 1 chip or pitch, 1 bunker shot, and 2 putts, okay? Massively important. Right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, absolute classic. How often I see this shot overcomplicated scares me. I've even seen club faces like this. It's crazy. But you know what? We listen to so much advice from so many different areas that it's very easy for us to, as human beings, it's what we do. We tend to take something and slightly exaggerate it. But in this tip, I'm going to give you the simplest possible way to get out of a bunker. And it's without changing too much, because again, I'm a great believer in just trying to keep things simple. That pitch shot I just played then for 50 yards, the swing's not going to be much different. I'm not going to open my stance and open my feet and open the club face and swing it outside the line, because that is a completely different setup and golf swing. That's difficult to do. Why do we need to do that? Unless it's a super, super high lip, or we've got no green to work with. That's a really specialist shot, like you would find with the Phil Mickelson flop shot. You just don't do it, do you? So we don't necessarily need to do that in a bunker. What I would say, again, I've got my 58 degree. You could use a sand wedge or the 56, just like you could have done with the 50 yards. So club selection's got to be personal to you. What I'm looking at here is trying to make sure that I don't miss the green again. Okay, so where that flag is, it's all downhill once I get this ball on the green, and it's all moving from left to right as it goes down the hill. So I'm going to aim slightly left. I'm going to look to land this just onto the front edge of the green, which is about 10 yards away, and I'm going to let the ball go down the hill. Now, again, I want to get this inside of 20 feet because I want a bunker shot and 2 putts. So I want to get down in 3, worst case scenario. Now, to do that, as I take my setup, I'm going to dig the feet and get the feet below the golf ball. Posture is going to be a little bit more pronounced in the knees and the hips, so really kind of sit down lower, and the ball position is going to be more like you would have a driver. Now, one of the key things I like to do is really open up this left foot. Okay, so the left foot's working much more out towards the target, because as I swing into the ball, I want to make sure and promote as much of that rotation through the shot as I possibly can. If you don't rotate through the shot, it's going to be very, very common for you to dig the club down into the sand, and that's something we don't want to do. We want to be able to make sure we can rotate and clear through the ball. So, ball position just inside my left heel, got more pronounced in my posture. Club face is just going to stay completely neutral. I'm not opening the club face at all. I'm not rolling my wrist, I'm not opening the face, I'm not manipulating the golf swing. I'm just going to try and set the club face neutral, hit just underneath the golf ball. Again, I'm not a big fan of trying to purposely hit an inch before the ball, because more often than not, I see people then hit 2 inches, 3 inches before the ball, because how hard is it to exactly dictate where you're going to try and hit the ball, the sand before the ball? I would just always say, try and get under the ball. Just try and get a little tiny bit of sand and just work it under the ball. It doesn't have to be a huge divot to get out of a bunker. And the smaller your divot, the smaller your golf swing. If you have to hit a big divot, then you're going to need lots of power to get through the sand and to get the ball out. So, ball position inside that left heel, flared the left foot open, got a little bit of body weight sat into my left side, club face is nice and neutral. I'm going to hit this 10 yards. Maybe 15 yards, 20 yards. But it's such a good strike that it's still on the green. It's about 20 feet, 25 feet at a push, but I'm out of the bunker and I'm okay. I'm onto the putting surface, and the next is on, the pressure is on my putting. But as you can see, I got enough of a div. I got my right foot was pointing square, my left foot is pointing open. That was the line I drew for my ball position, so you can see where my club went in. And I only planned on going underneath the ball. I'm not really in control of exactly where my club's going to land. I'm not that good. So it's very difficult to then figure out exactly where the club's going to actually hit into the ground. Now, in terms of body weight as well, I always try and keep a little bit more into this left side. And I don't know if you can tell here, but in my right side as well, I'm much more onto the instep of my right side, because one of the things I don't want to do, I don't want to push my body weight and sway to the outside of my right foot, because if I do, I'm going to be more likely to catch the sand first as well. So again, very similar to the movements we made on the 50-yard pitch. We're just trying to use the bigger muscles. We're going to use minimal wrist hinge, minimal wrist action, and just use the bigger muscles. Use the sternum and just collide that club into a little bit of sand, carry it out and hold the putt. Right, so you can just see the second ball there is where the bunker shot's gone. I'm going to use that for our 5th shot, which is going to be the long putt. But before we get to that, chipping from the rough. It's different. It's very different to chipping off the fairway. There's grass that's going to get stuck between club and ball as I come through, so that's generally going to take the spin off, because the ball's not making connection with the grooves, so it's taking the spin off as it comes through impact. So what I often say to golfers then is, well, if you're reducing spin, then we need to add loft to get the spin back. It's the spin, it's the loft that creates the spin. So again, I've got my 58 degree out because I want to have maximum loft on the club, because it's going to be hampered by the grass between the ball. Now, maybe if I'm this close, some golfers would want to use a 50 degree or a 56 degree or a pitching wedge even for a little chip and run shot, which you can absolutely do from the fairway, but you shouldn't really do from this position because grass will get stuck. So we go maximum loft. Now, one of the changes we make in terms of a normal chip shot is push the ball position slightly further forward. So it goes inside that left heel. I'm going to push the body weight into that left side. And again, I'm just going to be quiet with my hands. I'm just going to make sure that my body dictates it. I'm going to use this lead hip to really open up, and that's set up to give me a little bit of a head start. I've opened my left foot like I did with the bunker shot, and I'm going to point my hips over that foot as well. So everything's slightly open, which is going to give me that feeling of two things. Angle of attack, which is the club coming down into the ball, and the body weight onto my left side. Two massively important aspects of this shot to make sure I can pop this ball up into the air. Hitting down on the ball creates backspin, which creates elevation. We need the weight on the left side to help us do that. So I open up the left side, ball position forward, left hip forward. Don't panic, just work your sternum, work your big muscles through the grass, okay? So it's going to be a left to right, it's going to be downhill. I'm going to allow for less spin because of the lie. Commit to the shot. It's landed a bit too far, but once again, it's inside of 20 feet, working its way outside, and then I've got an opportunity to make my bogey worst case scenario. That was a fast shot. Okay, so this is now technically the easiest golf shot we're going to play in this video because I've got nothing in my way. I could, you know what, I could grab a putter. Now, beware of that option because it depends on the type of grass that you're playing. So for example, for myself in Dubai, even here as well, it's very grainy. So the grass generally grows against the shot that you're playing in. So you can often hit a putt and it'll just fall into one of those pieces of grass that's coming against the ball and it'll only get halfway. It's a really tricky one. So it's also tricky then to chip into the grain as well. So we've got to be careful that we make a couple of adjustments. Now you can definitely change club selection. You could probably go with a pitching wedge, land it about here. Sand wedge, land it about here. I'm going to be at lob wedge, maybe landing it around about here. The slope is all going this way, as you've seen from my bunker shot. Everything was running away from me. Again, the goal is a chip. Isn't it funny? My closest one's from 50 yards. I would never have guessed that. Everything's going to run away from me from left to right. So I've got to try and read an element of the shot, plan the shot a little bit. Now, you're never too good. There's no level of golf that should plan shots ahead of other golfers that shouldn't plan shots. If you're a complete beginner, you should still plan the shot. I'd say it's even more important to plan the shot because this shot is massively important for you to get it inside of a yardage or inside of a distance to make sure that you can actually two-putt. Right, a couple of adjustments we're going to make here. I'm going to make sure this side of the club doesn't dig to the ground. I do not want the heel digging on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work the handle of the club upwards, and by doing so I've lifted the heel off the ground. I've got the center to toe into the ground, and I'm just going to play this like a putting shot. So I'm going to take my normal swing grip, but I'm just going to use my hips and my shoulders. You'll see that as my right shoulder goes back, my right hip also follows. My arms work straight, and this is massively important now in terms of swing path. If your swing path follows the shoulders and the hip, you're going to get too much inside, you catch the ball thin, and off it pops to the right hand side. So you've got to work your arms kind of as parallel to the swing path, to the target as possible. The swing path has got to be as neutral to the target line as you possibly can, but the upper body and lower body are going to rotate. Now I'm just brushing the turf with my toe of the club, okay? Again, get used to brushing the turf. You'll feel your spine angle moving, you'll feel your body rotating. You're not staying down. That whole lifting of the head is complete BS, and never, ever, ever ever think about that. You've got to use your body to rotate through the shot, there to there. Okay, so I'm gonna lift the heel up, toe goes down, narrow stance, weight slightly on my left hand side, pick a landing area, so it's gonna be left of the flag, between the golf ball and the flag really, onto the green, and actually, caught that a little bit heavy. Not ideal, but that was a bad shot. I apologise. Sometimes these things go wrong, but you know what? It's on the green. I've not duffed it in front of me. If I'd have had the heel in the ground and duffed it, that would not have made it to the green. The fact that I just used the toe, caught it a little tiny bit heavy, wasn't quite aggressive enough with the shot actually. I didn't really utilise my body through the ball well enough, caught it a little bit heavy, but I'm still in 2-putt range, and that's the key as we move on to that shot over there, which is going to be the long putt. Short. All right, what was just quite interesting is let somebody through in between those two shots just before I started this putt, and he literally had the same chip shot as what we were just talking about, but he went with like a 7, it looked like a 7 or an 8 iron chip run, which, like I said, is absolutely fine, but technique wise, duffed it short of the green. Now the stance was around about this wide, and because the swing's only to around about here or so, his body weight moved to the side as well, so he moved to his back foot, didn't quite make it back in time and duffed the chip just in front of him, or just short of the green, I would say. But then, golf being golf, he canned the putt. He held the putt from miles away. But it's one of those where you're not going to hold that putt more than 1 out of 10 times. It's highly unlikely, especially on this green. This green is rapid, downhill left to right. It's a great putt, pal. But the technique of standing like this for a little chip and run shot like that is just not going to work. He caught it really heavy in a position where he could have had more of a simple up and down. So we're going to be talking now putting. Oh yeah, this is a tasty one as well. So massively important that I 2-putt this, because this is the one that came from the bunker. So I've got to be looking at the break now. It should be relatively obvious even on camera that we're going from back to front, so everything is moving right to left. Now I'm also very much below the hole. I can feel it as I'm kind of walking up the green. I can feel myself walking uphill. So straight away, I know it's uphill, but I can also feel it's downhill when I go this way. So I need to be able to figure out and paint a picture in my mind as to what's going to happen, because this first part of the putt is going to come up the hill. As it starts to break, it's going to gather speed as it goes back down the hill. So that, you could have used an easy one to try and demonstrate. So I've got to try and pick a point really. And my point is going to be about here. So there's going to be gradual break as I get to the hole. And once I get here, I feel like it's going to really swing. Now, anything, let's say, 1, 2, 3, anything inside of my 3 size 11s, I'll be very happy with, because even then, to be honest, if I've got this as a next putt, I'm still aiming up here because I'm still going up the slope with a break. So this is a really difficult putt. Now again, once we're talking about leaving it inside of 25 feet, it's all relative. I could have left this in the most perfect position for a very simple-ish uphill putt, but now I've got an uphill right to lefter that actually gathers speed, I think, towards the end of the putt. So how I do this, I do my practice strokes, and you'll very rarely see me just looking down at the ground because I'm not getting anything from that. Yeah, you can watch your stroke, but it's now too late for technique. We should be doing this on the putting green. I'm looking now for feel. I'm looking at a specific point of this green that I'm going to hit my ball to. It's not going to be as hard as the hole because I feel like it's going to gather speed as it goes that way, but I'm going to get it up on that line, and that's where I'm going to look at. That's my visual aid. The last thing that I look at is exactly where I want this ball to go. Okay, now it's not to say it's going to happen, but it gives myself the best option trying to be as visual and paint that picture as possible. So there's the break, there's the brace, how it just swung a lot. Oh, I didn't quite get it up that hill. All right, so I've actually, to be honest with you, that was a poor putt. I've left this outside of the range I would like. So my second putt, this is when I get inside of 6 feet, I start to use the line on the ball to gauge where I want to hit the putt to. I don't use it on the longer ones because you can get a little bit too preoccupied with it and it feels a bit strange. So what I do from here, from inside of 6 feet, I use the line on the ball, get my club to line up as well, pick my spot. So my practice swings, again, I'm looking to the right of the hole, line the club up to the ball, commit. And we got away with it because that was a poor first putt. It was a good bunker shot. It ran away from me down the hill, but it was a poor first putt. So guys, I hope this video has been a help, because I honestly think it's a huge part of everyone's game that we take for granted. All this straight off the tee and hitting it longer is always amazing, but inside of 50 yards, getting it down in 3 maximum is key. And there's 5 key shots that will lower your score. So guys, if you've enjoyed this video, you feel like it's added value to your golf game, please do hit that like button. Also, massively important as well, if you could please subscribe, that would always be greatly appreciated. But from me, for today's video, I will see you again another time.